Something that I say along the way will touch you. I know it. Let's begin that process of crafting a meaningful life.
Here's Mary Crafts.
Hi, welcome back to Crafting a Meaningful Life. I'm Mary Crafts and delighted again to always come to you. It seems like I wonder how much could I possibly think of to talk of every single week? And now that I'm over 230 episodes, I think, okay, there must be an end to what we can talk about on this particular podcast, but it just doesn't seem to happen that way. People will walk into my life and I'll just talk to them and instantly I'll think, this is something I want people to know about. I want to share it on my podcast. Or I put up something on my social media that just said in random, what would you like me to talk about? And I got like hundreds of great responses. So that should keep me going until at least I'm at, episode number 300. So hang with us. We have lots of things for lots of different people. Even though most of my listenership are women, I do have some men as well. And I love that you join with us. First of all, I think that there's such value. I don't like to make a big line between the two sexes, that we are completely different and come from completely different planets. I don't think that's the case. When I talk about fear, men say, oh, I don't really have fear. I'm like, really? You've never been afraid of losing your job? Really? You've never been afraid of getting passed over for a promotion? You've never wondered if you were really a good dad? They're like, oh, well, those aren't the same kind of fears you're talking about. Like, it doesn't matter what it's about. It's fear and it's controlling our lives. And that's what we try and release and embrace, just living in love. I have a wonderful guest for you today that I think when I met Jeannie and I talked with her, she's such a bright light. And I thought, oh my gosh, I just want to have her on the show and share a bright light with you. Something that was brought to her. She's always had this light. I think, Jeannie, you've always had this light. But what's different is that then when you claimed your light, the journey you took to share it with others. So let's start with your light. Let's start with your journey, your personal journey of kind of where you came from and what's happened in your life that led you to where you are today.
Oh, okay. Um, I I was actually born here in Utah, in Payson, Utah, but my parents moved all over the place, and I grew up in. I like to claim the Pacific Northwest. I love the Portland
Yeah,
area. That is where
beautiful.
I grew up as a teenager, and I gained a great love for the outdoors, for just experiencing life. Um, a lot of wonderful people in my life that just kind of helped me through rocky times. Everybody has rocky times. And that's something that I want to make sure is clear here, is that every one of us has things we have to work through. And my story isn't necessarily any harder or more than anybody else's. We each have our own. Um, let's see. As an adult, I became a nurse. My professional background is nursing, and my specialty is um, mental health nursing. And I spent the first 10 years in that working with at-risk youth. That right there was my experience that opened my eyes. Um, it opened my eyes to the amount of pain there is in the world, to all kinds of things that are wrong. But it was interesting because as I worked with these children, I just loved them. And that's what we need, is we need to love. Love is really the key here.
And it's
Um,
crazy. We don't use that word in corporate America. It's a word that's
no,
like taboo. You start talking about love, it's like the same thing I'm talking about Jesus Christ. I mean, you just don't
yeah,
use those words in corporate America, that somehow they're either exempt from those things or they don't apply, that you have to have a different kind of motivation than love. That's all I've done since I've retired, is try and beat that drum that corporate America needs this more than ever before. Our world needs this more than ever before.
I think part of the problem is our English language. We have one word for love,
Yeah.
for all the whole gamut, the whole spectrum of what love is. And there's, you look in other languages and they have multiple words
Right.
that kind of define really what love you're talking about. And so when we talk about love, it's like, well, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I think that that's probably right because people will like think first thing when they think about love, they think about romantic love. And then they think about, oh, well, the
Hmm.
love of my children. The love that comes to their minds immediately doesn't have anything to do with the business world. It only has to do with interpersonal relationships. But the thing that I find sometimes hard to pound into their heads is that those interpersonal relationships aren't restricted to within the walls of your home. And the same
No,
tools and skills that we learn to build those relationships are the same that build those relationships, whether in our career or in our social settings. Um, Even on social media, I think people, when they look at my social media, they get that I'm about love, and that's all. And it might be, rescuing women in Ukraine, it might be helping women in Afghanistan, it might be with my grandchildren. It doesn't matter what the circumstance is. It's that I try and reach out always in love and be present without doing it in fear.
it's the light that you carry with you, Mary. You shine, and that light is exactly what we're talking
It's kind of
about.
like you
I
have
love that.
inside. I see it.
So one of the things that I saw over and over and over again, we would get kids who would come and we would be able to work with them, we'd be able to help them, and then they would go back to where they came
Right.
from. And it's like everything had been erased. And it started me looking. I started realizing that there's a pattern that we're facing. We have broken parents, broken guardians who are raising children really the best they know how. Nobody in this, I really believe there are very, very few people on this earth who are trying to mess up, who are trying to hurt people. But we're all coming from our own story. We're all coming from our own experiences and our own habits. And so I would see these kids go back or come back, and it's like we had never worked with them before.
Right.
And we had to start over. And so I was seeing this pattern going from victim to perpetrator. And it's like this ugly cycle. And how do we help break that cycle?
I don't know if you know this piece about me, but in a different life, I graduated in social work and worked as a parole officer. I don't
Okay.
think I shared that with you, but that
No.
was for me one of the reasons I started down this path. Years later, after my catering career, when I looked at what I was going to do, all those years, 5 years, I worked as a parole officer, and I'm not sure
Mhm.
of any of those people that I worked with I could have labeled them as a success because I was taking them out of lockup and putting them right back in the situation that they were in. Same friends, same parents, same problems at school, same this, same unemployable, fired, same low self esteem. And in lockup, we don't address that. And
No.
and so I'm thinking now, after so many years, it's been nearly 40 years since I've worked as a parole officer, that there are better programs, that there's more awareness of what we can do to pull up out of those situations. So tell me, as you watched this recent thing with the shooter in Texas, really a child at age 18,
Yeah.
I can imagine that you thought, well, actually, I'm not going to imagine. I want you to tell me what you thought of that young man. I've seen labels put on him as evil, as insane, as, it's a good thing he's dead. Share with me your thoughts. 'Cause. 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 'Cause.
My heart was broken for everybody. What's his story? Yes, everybody who is affected, and I don't want to ever discount the pain and the things that happen to anybody. But what's his story? What happened? What broke him? What path was he on that made him into what he became?
Yeah.
Um, what would have happened if somebody at a certain age had been able to put their arm around him, no matter how difficult he had been? What was his family life like, really? I mean, we can put on fronts and put on everything's fine with everything not fine behind the scene or behind the curtain. You know, my heart was broken.
And I think, all these gun laws that we want to change, I'm for that. I'm not, I think it's ridiculous that an 18-year-old gets to buy an AK rifle. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that there aren't red flag laws. Those are common sense things. But the problem and the solution to this goes way beyond that. It goes to finding those individuals who are hurting so deeply that this is the only solution they see. Just blinders on, and they see this as
Yeah.
somehow a way out. He knew he would be killed. That to him was better
Hmm.
than living. Why was he with his grandmother? Where is his mother? What had his growing up childhood been like? How did he become detached from people and dehumanized? Because that's what we're doing to him, is making him into some evil thing. We're dehumanizing him. I don't, it's, and the field that you worked in of mental health, especially with youth, um, is such a profound field. And I'm sure that that led you to wanting to
It
where
did.
you are today.
It did. One thing I want to say was a few years ago, I went to it was a training, and it was put on by one of the top psychologists in the Alpine School District. And they were talking about suicide rates and all the different statistics. And they were talking about the different groups and the different statistics for the different age
Mm.
groups. And it is, I am never saying it's not important to talk and see how we can help the youth. But the biggest number of statistics were with the people from the ages of 30 to 55. Where are those teens? Where are those youth? They're in the homes of those who are between 30 and
Who are the
55.
most dysfunctional. Yeah.
They are the ones who are trying to take, they're the ones who are raising the children, they're helping the elderly, and there's no one there for them. And they're broken. And their brokenness is affecting both directions. And so this helped me. I started looking at this and I realized, what if we help? And this isn't politically correct. I will
Okay.
say that. Not the most politically correct person. But who is it that is the center, really, of a home? It really is the woman. The woman, whether we like it or not, the woman has great power over how over the health of their family, the mental health, the physical health. If we can help the mother to heal, if we can help the mother to find her purpose, to take her pain, to put a purpose to it, and to turn that into power, you're helping everybody that she comes in contact with. So this is actually the idea that has led me. Um, in 2019, I was looking at getting my doctorate to become a nurse practitioner of psych and mental health, because really all that was available to me at the time was just to hand out medications, and I wanted to do more. I wanted some power. I saw things I could do and that I felt very strongly about, but I didn't know how to do it other than go and get my doctorate. So at the same time, I met my business partner, or the woman who is now my business partner. And she had a few months before started this program called Soul Seed Academy. And Soul Seed Academy at the time was just some workshops and some classes and some retreats on helping women entrepreneurs to have business skills. And we got talking and we found we had a lot in common. And my business partner, she is the most amazing entrepreneur. She's been an entrepreneur for 20 plus years, and she has many businesses and very successful businesses. And so she has this skill and this background that she realized people didn't have. Business building doesn't come naturally. It's it's a skill, and it's things that have to be learned for sure. So we started working together, and I started learning how to be an entrepreneur, and I love it. I love the freedom that it
Yeah.
provides. There, but bringing in my mental health piece was really interesting too, because we were realizing that there's barriers and there's things hidden under the surface. Everybody has things hidden under the surface. And business building is honestly my new favorite healing modality because it forces you to face all the crap. It forces it to come out. But I mean, you don't have to face it. You can shove it back down if you want, but it'll keep coming back up until you address it. But anyway, so what I found is over time, we've created this incubator group for women entrepreneurs. And we've created a grassroots approach to the mental health crisis that I'm seeing. Or I wanted to help women. I wanted to help mental health. I'm finding that we're helping women have purpose and to have something that they can do and create with. It helps them to heal. And so I'm just really excited about it because, as I said, it's a grassroots approach.
You know, that group you talked about, 30 to 50, um, so many
Mm-hmm.
of my listeners fall in that category. And I think sometimes the reason that it happens in that age range is because when you're young, if you're able to survive the youth, there's some sense of yet of hope that things are going to get better, that life is going to still bring all the beauty that you have seen on TV and movies and social media and dreamt about. And then once you get into life in that 30 to 50 range, one of two things happens. Either you begin to see that life is really moving that direction and you're creating all that you dreamed possible, or you're not. And you're
Yeah.
just feeling stuck, and hope starts to wane. And you think, it really is this all there is to life? Can I just tell you how many women I talk to, and this is the one thing that consistently comes out of their mouth? I see time ticking by, and I'm afraid it's too late for me.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, I agree so much. Okay, I love the the Celtic traditions. And we need to change some of the wording of the Celtic traditions, but they have the idea of the maiden, the mother, and the
Mhm.
crone. The crone word needs to change here in our culture.
Especially when you
But
get to be
if
my
you
age,
think
I don't wanna
about
be
it,
known as the crone.
I know, but there's some really beautiful
I
symbolism
agree.
here and some meaning. The maiden is who we revere and even worship in our
Mhm.
society. She's fresh, she's young, she's beautiful, she has all this hope, and her body looks great. Then we have the mother. We honor the mother because the mother brings forth life. But then we get to the crone. The crone really,
Yes.
in the Celtic traditions, that's where the power was, because she went through these stages and she had so much to offer and so much to give. But in our society, we don't see it that way, and we need to change that. We need to embrace our
I
power.
think it's why I'm still here, still doing this podcast, to say that, find those mentors, find those women who are out there who have walked the road, who can
Yeah.
offer you some advice along the way and open up your mind to new thoughts. I kind of think rather than in the crone phase, I would like to replace that word with goddess. That
I
I'm in
love
the
it.
goddess phase, where I have walked so many paths and learned so many things, not in the perfection stage. I don't think that that
Mhm.
stage exists. But I'm in the goddess phase that I have enough foundation underneath me that I at least know how I'm going to get from point A to point B, or now from point M to point O to point P to point Q. Okay. And those
Yes.
those things I think are valuable as we look for mentors. That's one of the gifts that you offer with your Soul Seed Academy, is that if people are women particularly are floundering to find those mentors who can help them see their potential, help them realize their dreams, you're providing those kind of mentors, that kind of, hand by hand walk down your path with you. That's incredible, Jeannie.
Oh, it is so incredible, and not only is it what we do, but the women that we help to empower and build, man, you come in and we guide you to
Yeah.
them because they've taken those steps. We have so many healers, we have so many passionate women who are owning who they are, that it's like there's so many options, there's so many mentors. I love that you're talking about mentors because we all need them. We are not meant to walk through this life alone. We aren't. And as women, we need each other. We really do.
Yeah. I belong to so many different women's groups, and I belong to groups where I am the oldest. Well, actually, I'm probably the oldest one in all of them. But there are times I belong to groups where I feel like I am the goddess in the group, where they are
Mhm.
all younger. And then I belong to ones that are just all my age and walking through life and what's next. And everyone who listens to this podcast know that I plan on living to be 105. So at age 68, that's a long time yet. And if I'm just treading water and knitting needles and playing golf, life is going to get pretty old pretty soon. But by continuing to grow and find out what's next, that they say that true entrepreneurs, of course, are those who just follow anything that twinkles. Oh, look at this over here. Oh my gosh, look at that. Look at that. And you just explore it. And that's why you have to make sure you have a good business partner, maybe who is not of the entrepreneur mindset, who can, okay,
Yeah,
we see all those sparkly things over there, but we're going to focus right here for right now. So keep your creative brains here. Okay.
exactly. Exactly. I like to tell people in that situation, keep a notebook. You've got what you're working on. It's really important, but don't forget those ideas. And if you write down those sparkly ideas, then you've saved them and you don't have to worry about them. And what's funny is so many times you go back and half the time you've you've achieved them
Right.
too. And but you've still been able to focus on what you're really meant to work on.
So how do you help women? Do women who come to the Soul Seed Academy, do they already have an idea what they want to do? Or do you help them find their passion and the things that are germinating in their brain?
That's a fun question. We actually help
Ah,
both. We have women who have come to us and said, okay, so this one gal, she's so amazing. She came to us and said, I want to be a birth influencer. I don't want to do social media and I don't really know what it looks like, but I want to open women's eyes to what's available in birth. And so what we ended up helping her to build was this business where she creates swag bags, and she connects with women entrepreneurs within the community, and like not your Pampers and your big name lotions, not that kind of swag bag. This is where you've got things to help with lactation, like natural ways. You've got um, doulas who are able to put in offerings, just all kinds of things from the community. And she's able to bring these bags to obstetricians, which is really unique because the
Sure.
she's opening eyes, or she's opening the client's eyes of I can't say this right. She's opening the eyes of obstetricians' clients to what's available on a natural level. It's really hard to do that, but she's been able to, and and it works naturally for her. It helps. It it's it's genuine to her, and that's what's important. It's not, I have to do this a certain way. It's, what is it that your gifts are, your strengths are, and how can you use those to do something different? Why do you have to look like everybody else? You don't. So we take somebody who has an idea or a passion, and we can help them build a business model and test it out and brand it and get it ready to take off. Or we work really well with women who have a business idea. They've started it, they've started working with it. They need some structure, they need some support, they need some branding work. And we can again help them build more traction and test their hypotheses out and make it work. So it's really
Yeah, I
fun.
love that idea. I think really most people have brilliant creative ideas, but they don't necessarily
Mhm.
see them that way, or they don't know what to do with them once they have them. I, one of my thoughts is that I've often think of a problem and what it would take to fix that problem. Just this morning, I was driving and I heard a commercial for water heaters. And the commercial is always the same. Don't wait until your water heater is flooded your basement or you have a cold shower. Call us and we will come in and see how your water heater is working. I thought to myself, I've had my water heater break in my garage before, and I go out there and it's flooded. Seems like there's something you could do to test the different pH or whatever it is in the water that's being heated, and that it must change as that bottom begins to rust out, or that you could put in the bottom that would notify you on an alarm when you got to that point. Now, I'm probably not ever going to run with that idea. Throwing it out there. If somebody wants to do that, just think what a genius idea that
Yeah,
would be. And we all are confronted with problems that we just like, when Thomas Edison with the light bulb realized that life had to end when the sun went down, and they were reading books by candlelight. Now I want as many looms as I can get. I want that LED lighting. So he
yeah.
came up with this brilliant idea to solve a problem. I think we all think of those things all the time. Like, I hate the idea, this is just me, when I had a baby, then you'd have baby wipes that would come out, and 5 or 6 would come out, and not just 1, and I've thought, "Gee, I want something that where the perforations between those individual wipes are deeper, and so when you pull one out with the slightest tug, it'll break rather than, 'Here comes 20 more.'" Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
think of all the little things like that, and if people come to
yeah,
you with that kind of an incubator idea, and where do you go? How would I even begin to market that? How would I begin to get the funding for that? I wouldn't even know where to begin. That's what you do.
that is what we
And women
do.
who are looking
Yes.
for, great ideas of things that they've been thinking about that they could do at home, what a better place than to incubate them with you.
Yeah, and there's so many, like you're talking about, there's so many ideas. There's a few things that's really helpful. Um, One is the determination. You need to have you need to have grit. You need to be willing to take, we can't do this for you. There's certain, we can help guide you
Favorite
along,
word.
but you have to have grit. Another word that we love is moxie.
Oh, tell me about that.
Moxie is willingness to do something audacious, something that, reaching out and calling Mary.
Dream big.
and reaching out to Mary and saying, Mary, hey, I would really love, this is how I got
Yeah,
to know
you did.
you.
You just reached
You
out
know,
to me.
yeah, and it was the coolest thing. And I'm not saying everybody needs to reach out to Mary. That would be
That's perfect.
overwhelming. But who is your Mary? Who in what you want to do you look up to? And reach out to that person. It may not happen immediately, but you never know if you reach out. So it's having the courage to do something that most people would say, "Oh, that's really gutsy, isn't it?" Yeah, be gutsy.
My very good friend Kate Strong. This was probably now, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. And she made a list of 5 women on a piece of paper that
Mhm.
she wanted to meet. And every time she was with
Yeah.
other women, she would show this piece of paper and she would say, "Do any of you know any of these women?" And my name was on that list. And she showed it to someone. The very first person she showed that list to, they said, "Oh, I know Mary. I'd be happy to make an introduction." And within a week, we were having lunch together. Now we're best friends. She has taken that mentorship and grown her own business now. And she's often flying with, you know, uh, My Strong World and doing her own thing
Yeah.
in lifting women. And it came from just having the moxie of putting people's names down and asking them. I'm right now mentoring a
Mhm.
woman who lives in South Africa, Justine. And I asked her to dream big about what did she want to do. And she said, "I'd like to be an anesthetist nurse." And I said, "Do you know
Mm,
any?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Write that down on a piece of paper. And every time you're in a group of people, say, 'Do you know anyone who is an anesthetist nurse?'" And eventually, very soon, she's going to find someone who is and talk to them and now create her own mentor of how to do this. But I said, the more people you share your dream with, the more likely it is to come
yes.
true. Because the more people you
Yeah.
share your dream with, the more the energy of the universe actually coming to rally around you. If you keep it inside of you, probably not ever going to happen.
You started out talking about
Yeah,
fear. We, in general, are afraid to dream.
yeah.
We hear stories of dreams that have been crushed. And what I'm realizing is, especially as I'm looking around and I'm working with women, and we have what we see is we see act what, 3, 4, 5 of a 10-act play. And so these circumstances that we hear about that strike fear in our heart and stop us from dreaming and stop us from doing, it's actually what we're seeing is a snapshot, and we're basing our ability to dream on somebody else's snapshot of their life. um, we need to stop doing that. We need to realize, yes, those are actually really important. Actually, those are important moments in their lives, because what's going to come out of that pain? What's going to come out of it? We don't get to see it because we hear about, the horrible things that happen in our world. What happens after? What's the rest of the story? So we need to be careful about um, basing our stories and our dreams and our desires on things we hear around that bring us down.
Jeannie, that concept of fear, and for really anybody, whether they're male or female, to step forward and dream big, and then what's the first step in this dream, is totally connected to our level of fear. And we all
Mm,
have it. And the basic fear of
yeah.
all fears, I talked about this in my last week's podcast, the basic fear of all fears, whether it's your fear of failure, your fear of being embarrassed, your fear of being alone, your fear of being unloved, your fear of being rejected, your fear of being laughed at. I mean, we all have those fears, but they all come down to one basic fear. And that is the fear that we are not enough. And
Mm, yeah.
by taking that first step, is the biggest thing we can do in saying to ourselves, I am enough. It's the biggest step we
Yeah.
can take in saying to ourselves, I love me and I
Yeah.
love what I have to offer. And I think it's bigger than what anybody has seen before. And the truth is, it's probably bigger than what they have seen before. But that first step is the most important in overcoming this fear of not being enough. You
It's
did.
critical.
I did that.
Yeah.
You know, and not
There's people all over doing that. Let's all join ranks. Here's something that I want to share. This is probably one of my biggest things. We live in a world where there is darkness. There's plenty of darkness. There's plenty of pain. There's plenty of hardships. But there is just as much potential, if not more, for light.
oh yeah.
We can take on, we can take that on. And as individually, we start out individually. And as we embrace our light, we find others who have embraced theirs, and we link arms and we link arms and we link arms and so on until really that's how we're supposed to change the world. It's our own little light that reaches out and meets with somebody else's, and we magnify each other's light.
You know, one of the things I
That's what
loved
this is
about your
about.
website was looking at all the pictures of your retreats. Your women coming
Yes.
together, sharing their light, and realizing that every single woman in the room had the same fears, the same challenges, even though they may not look the same, but the feelings deep inside were so much the same. And then to spark each other to that belief that I can do this. I love the retreats you're doing. Those looked absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, they are, Mary. And one of these days you should come just because it's fun.
Yes.
That's the thing. There's something for everybody. It doesn't matter what phase you are in your business, whether you have a dream of a business or you are wildly successful. We all have something for each other.
I love that. We all have something for each other. It's kind of why I do this podcast. I believe that each of us have a story, that each of us have walked a path and learned some things, and that something someone says is going to strike home and inspire another person. So the more people's stories that I can expose, the more that I can share and be vulnerable in my experiences and the things that I have walked through, the more people can relate and have hope
Yeah.
and reach forward. Jeannie, I want people to visit your website if they have any interest in moving from living a fear-based life to a love-based life, in taking these dreams that they've had of some business or something they could achieve, and then the how-to that visit Soul
Mhm.
Seed Academy. And that website, of course, we've included on the end of this podcast that people can look and actually come to your website. And really, the joy that's in the faces of those people as their lights have come on one by one, and they've become unstuck. You're doing some
Yeah.
amazing work out there, Jeannie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. I really appreciate it.
And we hope that you've enjoyed this podcast and maybe that we found that little burner to put underneath you and get you going to achieve all your dreams. Don't be one of those in the 30 to 50 age group who have given up, who feel stuck, who think that it's maybe my time has passed by. Maybe it's too late for me. I was a successful businesswoman at age 50, but I still felt that life had passed me by. I still felt I hadn't achieved all that I was able to do. And now I have found new spark since age 50. So for 18 years, my spark has been growing. And now I have this bonfire going. And I just love what I do. I love speaking to groups of people. I love mentoring. I love, doing my podcast and showing women what is possible and what they can become. And I love other women who are with me on this journey. So thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you all as we craft our meaningful lives. Namaste.